Hi guys, find out how this man managed to solve several impossible math problems. Welcome to Worth Recap. This time I show you the summary of the movie, The Man Who Knew Infinity. It all starts at the beginning of the First World War, with the Indian mathematician, Srinivasa Ramanujan, who tries to find a job in Madras, showing his mastery with numbers to an examiner, however, who rejects him, immediately returns home to relax and chat with your friend. The next morning, Ramanujan continues to look for work and shows his work to a fellow Indian named Mariana. He recommends him to his boss Sir Francis for an accountant position, in exchange for him explaining the mathematical formulas he has created. Sir Francis gives him a job because of his friendship with Mariana, and Mariana advises Ramanujan to bring his family so they can live together. Ramanujan brings his wife and his mother and leaves them at home while he returns to work. There Ramanujan mentally performs the operations and Mariana recommends him to use the abacus, because if Sir Francis sees it he might get angry. At night the two meet and Mariana wants to take Ramanujan's work to some experts who can understand and analyze his work, so he recommends sending his work to England. Ramanujan's wife notices that he is not coming home and goes to find him at work, where she finds him talking to Mariana, who apologizes for distracting her husband and leaves them alone. Ramanujan's wife feels that he loves numbers more than people. He tells her that this may be true, however she is more special to him than anything else. Then he explains his mathematical work to her and she begins to understand better her husband's passion. Ramanujan tells his mother about taking his work to England. Ramanujan's wife believes that this recognition is an honor, but his mother thinks otherwise as her traditions forbid them to cross the sea. At work, Mariana tells him that she must take his work to England so his work doesn't die with him, but he refuses and wants to stop talking about it. The next day, Mariana mentions Ramanujan, possible examiners of her work, and Sir Francis recommends Hardy, a revolutionary, who changed the basis of examinations at Cambridge. Ramanujan sends his work to Hardy who reads it and thinks it's a joke, since in it Ramanujan is portrayed as an accounting clerk who can make sense of the negative values of the gamma function. Later Hardy meets his colleague Little Boots and tells her that his joke was with the letter that says to give meaning to the negative values of the gamma function. It is very good and that it almost convinces him. However, he doesn't know what he is talking about. Immediately Hardy returns to his study and begins to study Ramanujan's work, but he doesn't fully understand it, so he calls Little Boots to help him, saying that it is a work like no other. Because of this, Hardy decides to invite Ramanujan to England. Sir Francis receives the letter from Hardy and gives it to Ramanujan. Then he meets his wife and tells her that she wants to go to England. Although she must break her traditions, she accepts because she knows that this means a lot for him. Ramanujan decides to cut his hair to increase his resolve and then tells his mother that he is going to England, which devastates her. However, in the end, he accepts because the day Ramanujan leaves, he says goodbye to him at the port with his wife. Ramanujan arrives in England and is greeted by Little Boots, who gives him a guide around Cambridge. Meanwhile, some professors criticize Hardy's decision to bring in Ramanujan because it could damage Cambridge's image. Ramanujan introduces himself to Hardy, who greets him quickly and tells him to come to his apartment tomorrow for a chat. Little Boots guides Ramanujan to his room, where Ramanujan sits down and tries to get to work. The next day, Ramanujan meets with Hardy and Little Boots, who inform him that they must attend classes in order to get their work published. Ramanujan agrees to the condition and then gives them more notes on his work with prime numbers. At night Ramanujan goes to the dining room and there he meets another Indian student who praises him for being able to get to work with Hardy. Soon they serve meat-based food, and in Ramanujan's culture its consumption is prohibited, so it leaves the place without eating, and begins to feel culture shock. Hardy watches Ramanujan leave and follows him to see if he's unhappy about something, but Ramanujan tells him that everything is fine. The next day Ramanujan attends math classes, and during class the teacher sees him without taking notes, so he makes him go to the blackboard to solve the proposed exercise. Ramanujan solves it very easily, leaving the teacher speechless, who ends the class. When Ramanujan is about to leave, he tells him that he is no longer welcome in his class for having humiliated him. Ramanujan goes out to the campus and is overwhelmed by the difference in culture, so he tries to hide in a cathedral, and seeing only images of gods alien to his culture, he decides to enter an adjoining room where there are statues of great scientists. He then meets to find out why proofing is needed to publish his work, as he knows it's okay, so Hardy tells him that in order to change the way people see the world, they need to bypass those who fear it. Change, and for this they must have solid proof of what they want to prove, so Ramanujan must attend classes, not offend his teachers, and give proof of his work. He then takes him to the library where the legacies of the world's greatest creative minds are kept, where he presents him with Newton's notebook and explains that he could conceive of the world in the same way as Ramanujan. But in order to prove that what he believed to be true, he had to spend decades proving it, so Ramanujan must continue his efforts so that one day his legacy can be exhibited and admired by the people. Ramanujan receives a letter from his wife which gives him the inspiration to discover a new formula, which he indicates to Hardy. However, Hardy tells him that he will not review it until he finishes testing his previous formula. However, as Ramanujan leaves, Hardy sees his formula and realizes that it is for partitions, that is, the ways in which a number can be obtained, at a time when a formula is considered inconceivable. Ramanujan, after hearing that Hardy won't review his work until he has proof, decides to focus on him and shortly after hands it over to him in the middle of a meeting. In the morning, Ramanujan receives the proofs that he sent corrected by Hardy. He looks for him and asks for an explanation of the corrections. Hardy tells him that there are still steps to be understood, and Ramanujan replies that he does not know how to do them, he only knows that what is written is correct. However, Hardy replies that he can't rely on his intuition alone, then tells him that with proof he can go a long way, and shows him one of his published writings. Immediately Ramanujan sends the good news to his house, and his mother shares it with the people. Then Ramanujan's wife writes him a letter saying that she will always be with him and wait for him. Then she goes to the temple where Ramanujan wrote his first formulas and advances. Then she asks Ramanujan's mother to send him his letter, but she just keeps it inside a box. In England, the war begins and the army recruits little boots and also places tents to care for the wounded within the university. It also begins with food rationing, leaving Ramanujan with little food. Ramanujan goes to the post office to find out if he has a letter from home, and, knowing that he has nothing, he tries to insist, so they throw him out of the place and some soldiers beat him when he left just for being a foreigner. At his residence, Ramanujan tries to cook with what he has, but to no avail, so he goes without eating, remembering his wife. Later, Hardy receives a communication from the Council of Mathematicians, who do not want to publish more of Ramanujan's work due to his foreign status, and this annoys Hardy. The day Little goes to war, he arrives and gives Hardy a letter in case he doesn't come back, in which he says that Ramanujan is a brilliant mind who could change the world, so he asks Hardy to do his best to help him. That his work does not die with Ramanujan. Hardy quotes Ramanujan to tell him that his prime number theorem is wrong, since when subjected to calculus it fails. He then asks Ramanujan for more evidence. This annoys Ramanujan and tells Hardy that he doesn't trust his work and that he is just judging him, then leaves and starts working on his evidence again. The next day he gives them to Hardy, who then looks for him and congratulates him on the evidence he delivered. In the afternoon, Hardy attends the funeral of a fallen colleague in the war. There he consults a friend about the change in Ramanujan, since he notices him different since he gave him the evidence, and tells him that this was to be expected since he is not treated like a person. After this, Hardy reflects and decides to believe in Ramanujan's work, so he goes to Dean Major McMahon, an expert in the area of partitions, and asks for help in Ramanujan's work. Ramanujan later meets with McMahon to discuss the partitions, and McMahon tells him that they are impossible and will prove them to him. That is why Ramanujan challenges him to get the value of pi to 2/100ths, with the sums, while he will do it with his formula. Immediately Hardy and Ramanujan get to work, and when the day of truth arrives, McMahon discovers that Ramanujan's formula obtained a result with a 2% error, which leaves him speechless. Ramanujan then retreats to his room where he begins to cough uncontrollably, So he goes to a doctor and is informed that he has tuberculosis. Hardy and Ramanujan manage to reduce the partition formula's error rate to less than 1%, whereupon Hardy tells Ramanujan that he nominated him to be on the council. However, none of the council members support him. Then Hardy informs Ramanujan, who tells him that he knew this was going to happen. That night his illness worsens and he attends the doctor, who informs him that if things continue like this he does not have much time left. Hardy learns of Ramanujan's condition and stays with him to support him. With the time he spends with Hardy, he discovers that Ramanujan's ideas come from God. For Hardy that doesn't make sense, but still he believes in Ramanujan and his genius. That night Ramanujan manages to complete his formula and check it. The next day he gives it to Hardy and asks him not to let his work die. Hardy promises he won't and meets with McMahon to ask him to help make Ramanujan a member of the Royal Scientific Society, then writes Little Boots to come back from the war and help him with Ramanujan's work. The day in which society will judge Ramanujan's work arrives. Hardy introduces Ramanujan's work in front of the society and the society accepts Ramanujan as a new member. This news makes Ramanujan happy and he decides that it is time to return to India. After being formally accepted by the Scientific Society. A year later, Hardy receives a mail from India informing him that Ramanujan is dead, and Hardy bids him farewell with a speech before the Royal Scientific Society. History tells us how Ramanujan died at the age of 32 and that in 1976 a notebook was found with new formulas by Ramanujan, which served to understand the behavior of black holes. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe to see more videos like this. If you wanted to see more, I recommend this action movie.